Hi everyone, welcome to another video on POE2. POE servers are restarting now. Basically, we have an update and a patch 1.0e, and here's what is in the patch. General improvements and changes. They've added the capacity to fast travel between checkpoints within an area. You can now select checkpoints which will bring up your map overlay, allowing you to select other checkpoints you've discovered in the area to travel to them immediately. Many more checkpoints have been added to areas generally at all the entrances and exits to areas, meaning if you find those first, you're able to instantly travel to them if you choose to go back and explore an area. Passive point respecking has been made cheaper, especially at higher levels. It had a relatively aggressive curve, getting more expensive with character level. We have flattened the curve so it doesn't exponentially grow as much. For example, this should generally result in approximately 40 to 50% less gold cost for respecking between the start and middle of endgame progression. Pretty awesome. So you can now respec your builds, you can change them up as you like, and it's not going to cost as much. And the checkpoint system is amazing. I can't wait to do this. Added a shortcut to open a skill's advanced information display by right-clicking the skill on your skill bar. Okay, that's another great touch. You don't have to go into the skills panel itself. You can just right-click on your skill in your skill bar. Pretty awesome. You can now compare equipped flasks when using a gamepad. Great news for my console brothers and sisters. Added chance shards to the currency exchange. What is the currency exchange? I still haven't used this. Interesting though, but I'll find out eventually. Added a button to travel to your guild hideout when interacting with the waypoint. Pretty cool. I'm surprised we didn't have that already. Endgame and monster balance. Maps no longer have additional elemental resistance penalties inherently applied at tier 6 and tier 11 or higher maps. It is now consistent across all of the endgame at the same value as it was previously at tier 1. Critical strikes for monsters now deal 40% less bonus damage. This is going to be huge for all of you endgame PoEers. You guys are going to have a blast now, I think. Chaos damage now scales less aggressively over the endgame. The ground laser and ground lightning abilities used by the Runed Knight in expedition encounters now deal significantly less damage. The Wasteland modifier that adds burning ground to your maps no longer increases in coverage or area with higher tier waystones. The Siphon's Flask's charge modifier on monsters now drains 10 times less flask charges per second. This was unintentional that it did drain as much as it did before. Disable the Volatile Crystals modifier to be revised in the future pending telegraphing improvements. The Trial of Fire monster modifier now deals 30% less damage and lasts for 3 seconds from 5 seconds. The Trail of Lightning monster modifier now lasts for 4 seconds from 8 seconds. The Trail of Ice monster modifier now lasts for 4 seconds from 8 seconds. The purple explosives created by the Volatile Plants modifier on rare monsters now deal significantly less damage. I'm very happy about this. I've died way too many times to these things. Packs of Prowling Chimerals in maps now contain less of the Prowling Chimerals and spawn alongside some zombies. Lowered the baseline monster density at breach encounters, primarily by reducing the frequency of the elite monsters appearing. Fixed an inconsistency in the different types of packs that could spawn during breach encounters. You should now see more different types of monsters appearing on an area-to-area basis. The volatiles spawned by the Volatile Fiend's Trial of Chaos modifier now accelerate over time. The Stormcaller Ruins Trial of Chaos modifier are now smaller, take longer to charge up when standing inside, and give more time to escape once triggered. The runes now also get larger as the modifier is upgraded. Improved the hitboxes on a number of abilities used by the Blackjaw and Remnant. The crossbow variant of the Decrepit Mercenary monsters that dealt fire damage now deal less damage. For the Trial of Sekhamas improvement, honor damage now scales down based on distance to enemies. You now take up to 35% less honor damage when in close range, tapering off as you move further away. Fixed a bug where damage over time was dealing 3 times as much. This was in the previous update, so I'm not going to read that. Basically, now it should work properly. You shouldn't get dealt as much damage, and resistances will be applied. Skitter Golems no longer use basic attacks and instead now just explode on their attacks. Serpent telegraphing their movements better. Yep, Volcanoes created last half as long. Add a keyword hover for honor mechanic in the Trial of Sekhamas. Interesting. Cool. So now we'll figure out what honor is. Skill balance. Okay, so this is the big one. I was looking forward to this. So here we go. Skill balance. Rolling Slam's second slam now deals 50% more damage to heavy stun enemies. Ice Shot Shards, now secondary, gain additional projectiles as it levels up. Ice Shot Shards now targets within 90-degree cone. Ice Shot Shards now travel further, base 200 ms from 100 ms, to be tested and iterated, so they're going to work on that one. Ice Shot arrows and projectiles are now smaller and are the same size as their arrows. Electrocuting arrow base duration to 25 seconds from 12, doubling the quality bonus also. Barrage now has 25% less damage on barrage attacks, from 60% less before, at level 1, some scaling per level. Barrage now has +2 repeats base from +1. Shock chain arrow shockwaves now deal 100% more damage. Ooh, that's pretty nice. Sniper's Mark cooldown reduced from 6 seconds to 2 seconds at all levels. Combat Frenzy can now gain a frenzy charge no more than every 3 seconds, from 7 seconds at level 1 to approximately 1.5 seconds at level 20. Stormcaller arrows bolts now gain additional impact radius at its levels. Vine arrows damage over time has been adjusted. It is now slightly higher at lower levels and substantially lower at higher levels. The intention of this ability was not that you poison it to spread poisons, as opposed to the vine itself dealing immense amounts of damage. Or it was to spread the poison rather than dealing damage. Tornado shots damage over time has been adjusted and is now slightly higher at low level. Same thing. The intention of this ability was to propagate your other bow skills as opposed to doing an immense amount of damage itself. Magnetic Salvo can now only use your stuck lightning arrows as opposed to those created by your party members. Increase the damage growth per level on Unearth, new minion component, Bone Storm, Bone Cage, Bone Blast, and Power Siphon. Results in approximately 50% more damage at gem level 25. Increase the damage growth per level on Essence Drain, Contagion, Profane Ritual, and Chaos Bolt. Resulted in approximately 33% more damage at gem level 25. Bone Cage base critical strike chance has been increased to 15% from 13. Skeleton Arsonist Spirit costs now match Frost and Ice Mages from level 5 onwards, making them more expensive while keeping their costs early game the same. Bone Offering Explosions now have 15% critical strike chance from 13%. Resonating Shield, Shield Charge, and Shield Wall now have a 6 to 8 added physical damage per 15 armor on your shield at all levels. Resonating Shield radius increased to 2.3 meters from 1.8 meters. Shield Wall explosions increased to 4 meters from 2 meters. Shield Wall can now create a maximum of 2 walls from the one before. Shield Cascade has an attack time of 75% from 55%. Siege Cascade now searches for targets at the 3.5 meter radius from 2.5. Siege Cascade now has 50% more damage against immobilized enemies from 200%. Siege Cascade Explosion now deals 167% more damage. This accounts for the decrease in damage against immobilized enemies. Siege Cascade now has 30% less reload speed from 50%. Siege Cascade's quality is now 2% damage against immobilized enemies per quality from 4. Stormblast Bolts now has a maximum of 30 active bolts from 9. Stormcast Bolt has 5 bolts in the clip. Stormblast Bolts has 30% less reload speed from 50%. Plasma Blast now has 47% more damage with its initial hit and 25% less damage with its explosion, causing it to rely less on colliding with walls to deal damage. Artillery Ballistas explosion radius increased to 1.8 meters. Artillery Ballistas damage increased by approximately 21%. Gathering Storm's Perfect Dash now deals 53% more damage. Wave of Frost now has 275% more freeze buildup at all levels from 150. Staggering Palm's duration now scales with levels. It has 6-second duration at level 1, scaling up by 0.2 seconds per level from 6 seconds at all levels. Staggering Palm projectiles now deal 20% more damage at all levels. Concoction skills from the Pathfinder Ascendancy class now consume 3 charges from the mana flasks from 5. Their damage has been increased and deal approximately 66% more damage when the skill is at level 20. In addition, the base added damage has been increased by at least 50% for all concoction skills, with poisonous and bleeding concoction receiving greater damage buffs. Fulmination Concoction now has a critical strike chance of 8% from 6%. Shattering Concoction now has a critical strike chance of 11% from 7%. Explosive Concoction now has a 100% more chance to ignite enemies and 100% more magnitude of ignites inflicted. Fulminating Concoction now has a 100% more chance to inflict shock, and Shattering Concoction now has a 100% more chance to freeze. Holy, that's a lot of concoction stuff. To the Hunter's. Alright, now on to the Hunter's Talisman passive skill. Notable, now grants +1 to charm slot. The small passive skills leading up to it now grant the stat it formerly gave. The charm helper stat text has been updated to indicate that you cannot have more than 3 charm slots unlocked so that we can add more sources of it in the future. Added a new lightning damage and electrocute cluster to the passive tree in between the ranger and monk sections. The heavy frost notable passive skill now causes hits to only ignore enemy resistance to frozen enemies if their resistance values were positive. Supercharged slam now builds up stages slower but gains 40% more damage per stage from 20%. This may display as 20% still in it correctly until a later patch. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty has been removed from the support gem. It is now more difficult to chain freeze enemies by reducing the amount of freeze buildup applied after a freeze has been applied. Added a marker effect to Ember Fusilade's preferred target. Now for the support gem balance. Oh my god, there's so many patch notes. Added the Tremor support gem, which can be used to give up to multiple more aftershocks to skills with damage penalty. Added the Binding support gem, which can be used to give more damage to command skills of supported minions. The fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposure supported men no longer penalize damage to supported skills. They now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. The electrocute support no longer penalizes damage. Instead, it now prevents the supported skill from being able to shock. The lacerate support now grants 50% chance to bleed from 30. And venom support now grants 50% chance to poison from 60. The impact shockwave support now has an aftershock radius of 2 meters from 1.4. The bidding support now grants 30% more damage to minion command skills. The considered casting support now only supports spells you cast yourself. It also now grants 40% more spell damage and 15% less cast speed. The aftershock support now has 25% chance to cause an aftershock from 20. The mobility support no longer has a damage penalty but applies 30% less movement speed. The execrate support now has 100% chance to inflict ailments. The ricochet support now has 40% chance to chain from terrain. The Withering Touch support now has 25% less damage. The Ferocity support now has 40% more skill speed when consuming a Frenzy charge. Change the Wild Shard support gem to fire projectiles in a circle instead of a spiral pattern. The Decaying Hex support now deals 60% of intelligence and chaos damage per second, essentially 200% from what it was. It used to be 30. The Stomping Ground support shockwaves now deal 80 to 120% of your strength and physical damage, which is a lot. Holy. That's a lot. 80 to 120. So that's like 400% increase. That's crazy. That is actually crazy. Item balance. The charm modifiers on belts have been made substantially more common and now appear at much lower levels. The of symbolism modifier now appears from level 23 onwards, and the of inscription modifier now appears from level 64 onward. The unique item, the adorn, now applies to time lost jewels. Time lost jewel modifier of regeneration now applies 3 to 7% increased life regeneration rate to the notables in radius from 1 to 2%. Existing versions of the item will not be updated unless a divine orb is used. I don't have any of these, so I'm not sure how that works. For bug fixes, fix a bug where the unique item Maligaro's Virtuosity was granting the wrong amount of critical damage. Fixed a bug where the Crumbling Walls Atlas passive notable was applying the maps that didn't contain breaches. Fixed a bug where the stat granted by the Organized Forces Atlas passive notable was causing less waste stones to drop due to trying to upgrade to a tier that didn't exist. A bug where interactions would remove the player from demon form. A bug where certain rare monsters would respawn at checkpoints after consuming their corpse. A bug where leveling Oh no, my farming spot. Okay, well, I'm going to test it out and see if it's still there. Fixed a bug where leveling, and it says certain rare monsters, not all, just certain. I'm assuming the beetle's been updated, but I don't know if mine has. I hope they didn't get to mine. Okay. Fix a bug where leveling a skill gem incorrectly displayed the level change when it was supported by gem, which granted additional skill levels. This was purely a visual issue. Fix a bug where Unearth didn't work with the Sacrifice Spirit Gem. Fixed a bug where the Elemental Expression skill from the Invoker Ascendancy class had an incorrect hitbox. Fixed a bug where the Monk Ascendancy node Embrace of Darkness would desync when losing life and energy. Bug which prevented party members from entering the Jet fight once it had begun. A bug where cosmetic equipment UI was missing their tier selector for some slots. Yeah, I noticed that. Bug where the Trail Master encounter dialogue failed to play. Bug with the Rising Tempest support, where it was giving more damage per elemental skill used rather than more damage per elemental type. A bug where pathfinding could cause jittering of the character in some cases. Destroying items in hideouts wasn't possible. Frost wall segments could leave phantom walls, causing invisible blocking. Possibilities on non-weapon and unique items refer to a low level to use. Okay, Chronomancer's debuff expiry rate nodes were applying to Quicksand, Hourglass, extending its cooldown. Ember Fusillade could fail to target enemies, where the Sacrifice Spirit Gem couldn't target minions with Profane Ritual, where the explosion from the armor explosion support could explode inanimate objects. Some Spirit Gems displayed an incorrect error message. Arbiter of Ash area level wasn't being increased with difficulty. Emergency reload wasn't put on cooldown if you were using 2 emergency reload skill gems. Energizing Bolt Flask effect didn't work. Gamepad where concoction skills from Pathfinder and Sensing class would cause a crash. Some players would disconnect when trying to enter maps in the Ziggurat Refuge or build hideouts while in party. Explosions from the armor explosion support could trigger itself recursively. Ice Shot was unable to cause freeze buildup. Some volatiles in the Trial of Chaos would follow the player up elevators. Inscribed ultimatums and Jin Beras dropped in Cruel would incorrectly tell you that you could get ascendancy points by completing them, even if you wouldn't. Ballista skills didn't work with tornadoes created by Tornado Shot. Gamepad where the hide sockets didn't work. Gamepad where you couldn't see distilled motion recipe or on passive tree. Gamepad where you couldn't access the portal access settings while viewing the hideout stash. Solo self-found characters wasn't possible when using a gamepad with migration. It was disabled. Gamepad where you could use the shortcut to bind to open chat. Gamepad that caused it to take multiple attempts to change the tier selector of microtransactions. Gamepad where you couldn't set an individual price on an item in premium stash tabs. Fixed a bug where your gamepad couldn't socket jewels into specific unique items. Fixed 12 client crashes and 3 instance crashes. So that's a lot of patch notes, and they're live now. I think the servers are probably going to be up in the next hour or so. So yeah, that's the patch notes, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you found it enjoyable. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I do stream, so be on the lookout for those, and I'll see you all in the next one.